in this day and age, independent creators and artists online need to be, they need to be the producers, they need to be the marketing team, they need to be and luckily we can do that all from our phone. But it does take a certain mindset to be able to just kind of push through that,
of course,
and not worry about it too much.
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is one life.
Yep, one life. Like, fucking do it.
My guy.
Like, she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Talented writer and director Joe Bigioni. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, man. Yeah, thank you so much for being on. It's a true honor to have you as a guest, because I remember connecting with my mutual friend, talented film producer, Eric Tomj, who highly recommended to speak with you about your remarkable filmmaking career.
Yeah, Eric is a great dude. We actually met on the interview for film school.
Nice.
And so we've known each other since, before we both got in. And, we both have kind of similar tastes and kind of gravitated towards working with each other. So, yeah, he's a great dude and hard worker.
Yeah, extremely hard worker. That's what I admire about him. And then we met at a networking event years back, just before the pandemic kind of thing. So we exchanged each other's Instagrams, and we've just been keeping in touch ever since. So when I developed and pursued this creative venture, this podcast, I kind of like forced him in a way to be one of my first guests. But being a good sport that he is, he agreed to doing it, and the rest is history, right? So shout out to Eric Tomj. Thank you again for connecting us. And I'm really excited to be speaking with you, as I am with any creative, right? This is why I have this platform to discuss with filmmakers like yourself about your journeys, your experiences, and current projects that you've either completed or will be completing in the coming years. From my frequent conversations with Eric, he informed me that he had the incredible honor of producing a heist comedy short film that you wrote and directed called The Only Way Out Is Down. And as I began to further inquire about the film on social media, I quickly understood and appreciated the undertaking of this project. So there's a lot of familiar faces too, I should mention, involved there, like Alana and Svanier. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they've actually appeared on the Corner Talks podcast. So shout out to them. But that's amazing that you guys are all still working together, still collaborating. That's something that is reminiscent of my filmmaking career, keeping those that I trust, that are like-minded, around me, and making the best project possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a great team come together to make this project. Brandon Kenny, who has also been a guest on your podcast, shot the project.
Yes.
And so it was a great little family that we were able to create, and that's the best way to make these things. Yeah,
that's what it's all about, right? I always say creativity is a fine balance, so you can't have anyone disturb it or interfere with that, because at any moment it could all go haywire, right? So keep those that you trust very close to you, especially if they're talented. So great mindset that we both have. So going back to The Only Way Out Is Down, very interesting title. I want to understand, how would you best describe this short film?
Yeah, so The Only Way Out Is Down is it's a heist comedy following a political staffer who has betrayed his congressman, and is tasked with sabotaging a fundraising event to showcase his new allegiance. I've been kind of developing this project slowly over probably 2 years before we kind of really started shooting. It's a genre that I've been wanting to play in for a while. And when I started to develop the script, this just kind of felt, as we were getting out of COVID,
right.
And restrictions were lifting a little bit, and, we were able to have a few more people in a room. This kind of felt like the scale of project that I wanted to attempt next. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And I love that you tackled the genre of comedy. I don't think I've ever full out tackled comedy. I've always described my films as dramedies, more leaning towards drama or thrillers, subgenres and whatever have you. But the fact that you went in for a comedy, that's great. Do you identify as a comedic director, or you aspire to be one?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would say that I'm a straight comedy kind of guy. I definitely love comedy in films. I would
Right.
say that I definitely would like to, I love to inject humor into any idea that I am kind of creating. And I think that, the irony and the comedic irony can usually, even if it is a very dramatic piece, deepen a lot of the character and a lot of the theme if you have that hint of comedy. I find that some films that are, just drama can kind of come off as dry.
Of course,
because, humanity and our experiences, they have, hints of comedy, hints of darkness, hints of drama. So it's nice to be able to capture all of that.
No, it's so well said. And I'm so glad you've observed that as a filmmaker, because for myself, just from my perception of film, the ones that, like you said, don't inject some sort of comedy, whether it's dark, cynical, any kind of related to that genre, or if there's no love or romance that's in comedy, in film, rather. For me, that just lacks humanity. It's not real. It doesn't really help you resonate with the characters. And interesting enough, you have the Star Wars poster behind you. In Star Wars, the original trilogy, lots of romance. But I remember a lot of film critics on the internet, YouTubers that I follow, that actually helped shape and define my career with their commentary. One of them, Red Letter Media, shout out to them. They said something kind of like blatantly, where the prequel trilogy, as good as they are, I should say the sequel trilogy, the Disney trilogy, as good as the saga is as a whole, part of the reason why the Disney trilogy suffers is because it lacks sex, for lack of a better word. And what he means by that is there's no humanity to it. There's no, like, these people don't feel like they're flesh and blood. You know what I mean? Like they have a chemistry with one another, and there's no romance, right? And again, he's very provocative channel, like the way he speaks, but there's truth to it. In these films that we make, there needs to be some sort of chemistry with the characters. It doesn't always have to be romantic. It could be platonic, right? It doesn't always have to be sensual or sexual or anything like that in that nature. But there needs to feel that we need to express as directors and writers that these characters are people that you could meet on the street. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this film is a genre film, and Star Wars also in the sci-fi genre. I definitely love genre films, and I think the ones that kind of set themselves apart are the ones with that heartbeat, right? So whether that be a romantic tale or one of brotherhood or one of just, finding yourself, like a coming of age story, having either a heartbeat in the filmmaking or a heartbeat in the characters, those are the things that audiences kind of latch onto and ride for the length of the story. So
That's awesome.
with this film, the heartbeat of it was kind of this co-worker rivalry between Ez's character and Alana's character, who are Patrick and Gwen. And
Right.
So that was kind of the thing that tied it all together, is giving that force of antagonism, having our protagonist have someone identifiable to go up against.
Yeah, so going back to the film, right, and how it relates to the subject matter of politics, I want to know, like, why was this story important for you to tell?
Yeah, so I started developing this mainly out of kind of the opening image of the film.
Okay.
I've had that in my kind of back pocket or in my notes or in my, empty Google Docs.
Love it. Yeah.
For years. And then, I really was sitting around and waiting for, an idea to come into my head, and it was just kind of like not happening. I'm sure lots of writers have had that, where you're just kind of like in the desert and not finding any water. And so I just kind of like kept pushing that idea further, and it was going to be a tech company that they were sneaking into. It was going to be an art gallery, and then it kind of became a different thing, and it kind of found its voice. And that was just time to find that. So this film doesn't really have a political agenda. The politics are very much in the background of it,
right?
But I just wanted a kind of landscape that was dynamic and had a lot of varying characters, both in ages, in social settings, in all of that. And I think that this kind of setting was able to lend itself to that.
Yeah, of course. And I love that you picked out how the opening scene for yourself, like, was the inspiration, like kind of like the spark that really pulled you back into the story. And that's what you do as writers, right? We ask questions and we're constantly observing as to why that scenario would take place, right? And we have to justify it through the sequence of events that follow after or before, whatever have you, right?
Exactly.
But the reason why I smile when you say that is because that's with me, right? It's like whether it's a scene, a character, even a line or a title that I like. Sometimes I'll think of a title for a movie and I'll be like, I want that to happen. How does that? What's a story that would best fit? You know, and it's just amazing, like the minds of a writer. You know, like how we cultivate these ideas from nothing, really. And I like that you said, you know, you weren't finding anything rich, you weren't anything of substance. I mean, and you know, you just kind of kept going at it, and then eventually, like there was like that flow. Because as writers, for myself, that is, I get really hard on myself, and I'm saying like, you know, is there a reason why I can't you know, find that creative flow process? But I think that's what happens to the best of us, right? Is the writing block.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm definitely one to kind of like wait around for that inspiration to strike.
Right.
And you know, with the pandemic happening and not being able to make films, I kind of found myself just kind of sitting in that stasis. And the only way to really get out of it for me was to just like starting is always the hardest part for me. Because once I do start putting in the hours, I get that momentum. It's very much like a snowball rolling down a hill. But you know, first you gotta pack the snow together. So, you know, I really just ran with that opening image, and kind of then page 2 and then page 3. And then next thing I know, there was a first draft. And, you know, it's all about, you know, you got to manufacture that momentum. I do have a gym membership. I don't go that often, but writing is very much like working out, where you got to keep working, you got to keep building that muscle. You got to keep, exactly. You know, the first time when you go back to the gym, it hurts like a bitch on the day after, but if you keep going, it hurts less and less, and you know, you start to see results. So
yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned that analogy about writing and going to the gym. Because part of the reason why I do this podcast and I write these questions and these captions and things like that is because that's my exercise. And you know, I'm not writing a full out screenplay at the moment, but I've written feature length screenplays and you know, throughout my 20s, and I've done a bunch of short films. And that's what it is, right? People don't realize, like they say to me, how did you write 180 pages? I'm like, it's just repetition. It's waking up every morning and saying, I'm going to write 3 pages. And I don't know about you, if you have a rule or a benchmark. I know everyone's different. I know Stephen King does like 8 hours and he just writes a bunch, even if it doesn't make sense. I know like Spike Lee also has that similar method. But for myself, what I found is no matter how much time it takes, unless you can only leave the desk or like be done for the day, I mean, unless you've written 3 pages, and it's worked for me. Like that is exciting because it's like, it's only 3 pages. I can kill it. I can do it. And it's manageable. It's doable. A lot of people, they see it as a daunting task when they look at the blank page. They think, oh, okay, you got to finish 120 pages in the next 3 weeks. Yes, there's deadlines, but especially if you're writing creatively on your own, as you and I both can relate, just give yourself that deadline, the three pages a day, or whatever method works for you, and you'll be on your way. So I'm happy we have a very similar attitude towards it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm currently on the 3rd draft of a feature film script that I've been writing, and it's a very big rework from the first 2. And, you know, it's taken me a while to get into the mindset of digging into that 3rd draft, because, you know, it is such a big thing. It is such a daunting task. It is like one whole large, you know, nondescript thing. And, you know, I'm a big structure guy when it comes to writing. And so that has helped me, you know, actually do the work, is breaking it down into acts, then breaking those down acts into scenes. And, you know, it sounds simple, but it is a mindset thing of, you know, I either need to write the 3rd draft of this whole big script, or you can look at it as, I just need to write this scene. And then after that scene's done, you got to write this next scene. But, you know, it's all about like small wins, you know, dividing up your work, you know, it's very important.
Yeah, music also serves as for me, that is like critical inspiration, you know, like whenever I'm in a writer's block, or also whenever I'm, you know, not feeling inspired or motivated to write, there's always a track, I call it the anthem, that kind of helps me to embody, like I associate it the most with the film, or it's like identity, if that makes sense. And the films that I've aspired to write in my head, and the films that I've been writing now, there are songs at the gym that I listen to, or whenever I'm not writing them, it keeps it alive for me, like they're real. Other than the challenges of writing, the biggest challenge a lot of filmmakers have is when it actually comes to the production itself. And I noticed you mentioned that in an article, which we'll discuss shortly. But I want to know before that, what challenges have you learned from this project that have changed your mindset toward filmmaking?
Yeah, I this was definitely like the most ambitious project I've undertaken.
Okay.
And it was I didn't want to do something smaller. Whether that be a bad decision or not. Luckily it's worked out so far. But I think the biggest thing that I learned when taking on, this is still a short film, but something of this scale, I was working with more people than I'd ever worked with. The script was longer than I'd ever made for a short. Was just making sure that vision was clear and communication was clear.
Yes.
You talk about music. I definitely love to use music as a source of inspiration and a source of just like tonal consistency. So I had curated a playlist of scores that I had listened to while I was doing pre-production and doing some writing, and so those went off to actors, those went off to producers, cinematographers. Like all of that was part of the package to just help clarify my vision and make sure that we were all on the same page. And I think that was definitely helpful because I was able to cut things together pretty easily because things came together as I had imagined them. And I think that doesn't really happen unless you have the planning, the time for planning, the time for conversation before you get into, the belly of the beast of production, because there's so much going on set that making sure that you guys have clear goals and a clear plan, that was definitely the most helpful aspect.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I'm so happy that you made it an inclusive experience for everybody on board. That's what we do as directors, right? We're leaders essentially of the project. And one of the biggest compliments that someone informed me about was, I felt as if you were in control of the set. And for me, we aspire to do that. You know what I mean? Like that's everything that we work towards in contributing for the project and making sure everybody has that space to be creative. So I love that you incorporated the music with everybody and made them feel like, the tonal consistency, like this is why we're here. This is what we're trying to achieve. The vision is there. The vision is clear. So I really admire that about you. So upon researching your upcoming short film, The Only Way Out is Down, I came across an insightful article from York Region, where I currently reside. So I thought that was really cool. And it documents your illustrious journey in pursuing this creative endeavor. And a significant takeaway from the article is the respect and admiration you and your team had for small businesses across the city of Markham. They assisted in the completion of the project. And I want to know from you, how did the people of Markham serve such a vital role in its film's production?
Yeah, so it was lots of different aspects that we were able to kind of get assistance. When you're making a project that on such a tight budget and on, the constraints and time constraints and all of that, it came down to, writing for, resources that I had access to, or even if I didn't have direct access, like, oh, I know a person who knows a person and all of that. So when we were, writing this film, it was very much like, it was mostly locations that we got help with. So there's an alleyway that we begin and end the film in, and I didn't really have an alleyway in mind, and then I was driving around Markham, and I went to this Italian bakery that I've gone to for like 10 years, and just I ended up driving around the back, and I'm like, oh, this would work perfectly. And so talked to the owner, they were very helpful, and it was, filmmaking is a team sport, it's a community, it's all of that. And so we really wanted to kind of highlight that in our film and keep things contained, and so that was very helpful. The golf course that we were able to shoot at, that was just through a connection that we had. I wrote banquet hall in the script, and then realized that I actually had to follow through on that. And figuring that out was definitely a challenge, but we were able to make this film feel as big as it is, but for as small as we made it, because of those connections, and because Eric and I really went hard on the producing and making sure that schedules were tight, and relationships with those locations were good, and all of that. So
yeah, for sure. You said it right there, right? And that all comes down to the magic of filmmaking. Making something that seems grander in reality was actually at a very tight, small budget. The glory of independent filmmaking, I should say. I would know
exactly.
Because when you watch my films as well, or like when people have commented, they'd be like, "Oh, that's amazing that you shot it here, or you shot it there." And in reality, it was just because a favor was owed, or someone knew someone. Like you said, you walked in, you asked the owner, "Can I use the back alley?" You know what I mean? Nothing crazy like with permits or anything like that. But yeah, no, for sure. It really just comes down to like the budget, like with the banquet hall, right? Like I'm sure you can pay for that, room, that area, but it depends on like how much you're willing to spend, right? Because it can get pretty pricey.
If we didn't have that connection, we would have used our whole budget just to pay for that location.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And so, it really came down to, if we need to make this film, we need to make it smart, and we need to make it, we need to pull favors, right? Indie filmmaking is pulling favors and then saying thank you.
Of course,
and so, we really wanted to keep that philosophy, and, we couldn't have made this project without that mindset.
Yeah, interesting enough, when I was reading the article, and just like hearing your story now on the podcast, I'm surprised that like downtown Toronto wasn't an option, or maybe it was, because you shot this entire thing in Markham through the connection.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I love downtown, but it was more like getting our crew down there. Like the main thing was really, we talk about community and who helped out. Like,
right.
We needed extras to fill this banquet hall, and the way to do that was to ask friends and family.
Yeah.
And all of those friends and family are located in York region.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of all of this was the problem solving that we did in the prep, right? Is understanding how many extras we need. There's no way we're getting all of those people downtown, so that brings us back home, right? So that was really what drew us back to Markham, is that we had the most amount of resources there. We had the most amount of help. I had family bring in food for catering. We had everyone come in as extras. We wouldn't have had that, or at least as many of those people, if we were, in the heart of downtown, just thinking that we were making a film that was bigger than it is.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna say, if you're an Italian director, you better be the one providing the catering, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that part of the conditions?
Yeah.
Reminds me of Goodfellas, when Scorsese had his mom on set, and she like basically provided all the craft services, like she
exactly
provided all the food. So that's a give, and I love that. For those of you that don't know, we are both Italian, so that's why we make that joke.
Exactly.
But I love that, man. No, I love that. It felt like a sense of community, just seeing the stills, because I believe you posted that recently, and reading the article. I love that you got everyone on board, and for everyone being a great sport. I shot a film myself, with my Italian cousins, and it's just very hard to manage, and they were on board, like everyone understood, but they were also visiting from Italy. So it's very hard to like kind of convince everybody like how the end product's going to look. Only you can see it as a director. My point being is that getting them to taking them away, they were only here 2 weeks, taking them away from their family to do some shoots for like 2-3 hours at my house, then at the field, then at this, they were starting to ask questions like, hey, like they're only here for so long, right? The talent was on board, the two brothers, but everybody, rightfully so, was like, let them have a vacation, let them enjoy themselves. They see the end product, they see the project. Everybody was in glory. Everyone was elated. Like, oh my God, you put this together. This is amazing. It was such a beautiful, we couldn't believe it was going to be this good. And my point is that that's a director, like seeing their vision all the way through, which is what you've done with getting the banquet hall, getting all those connections in order, and being practical with locations, right? And not trying to like finesse anyone and trying to make it seem bigger than what it is. Because that's what the magic of filmmaking is all about, is telling the audience like what you want them to perceive. So that's really cool, man. I commend you both. What impact did this article have on your profession as a filmmaker, or your brand, I should say?
I mean, yeah, it's always good. I find that artists, this is a generalization.
Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of artists are kind of not great at going to bat for themselves or
Of course.
promoting themselves there. And I definitely fall into that camp of,
Yeah.
not sharing too much. And, I'd rather just post when I need to and all of that. So having an outlet, shine light on what we're doing and, kind of getting the word out there more than I could is definitely beneficial. It's how people find out about more projects. I had, Italians, my nonna is in this retirement community, and
nice.
The article was in the paper, and she heard, she didn't even know it was in the paper, but she heard a knock on the door, and
that's awesome.
One of her neighbors was like, "Oh, your grandson is in the paper." Like, so it's very nice to, have that outlet and, have more people hear about the film that way.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Like, any publicity is not bad publicity, right? As they say, I might be butchering that line, but essentially that we live in a world, a digital age where everything is all about attention. And there's obviously positive and negative attention, but the reality is we need to accumulate as much attention as we can as filmmakers for our content, because as you know, like the content is just saturated. It's like everywhere. So any source of, media outlet or news article or attention given to our content is necessary, right? So I don't know about yourself, like you were mentioning that aspect of having the humility to not be kind of like the center of attention and showcase your work and just, you kind of want, if it's out there, if it's discovered, then so be it, right? And I kind of had that same mindset because all my life I was very reserved, I was very recluse. To be honest, I always imagined myself like I just put out these films and then people will find me. It's kind of like, oh shit, like this guy did. But the reality is, again, I realized how competitive it was increasingly getting with social media becoming more sophisticated. And this is why, what I'm saying, I developed a podcast, for instance. I would never thought I would be on camera, with a microphone, inviting guests, talking, having a conversation, and then posting about it, like watch my podcast. But the reality is, again, I wanted to, create this community. I want to create this platform, but also this traffic towards, what I'm capable of as a creative, of myself and 94 Productions. So I understand, the struggle in that, but I commend you what I'm saying, that you understand and appreciate the value in having that exposure. And you don't shy away from it, because I think it's so critical for us young directors to embrace that notion.
Yeah, in this day and age, independent creators and artists online need to be, they need to be the producers, they need to be the marketing team, they need to be and luckily we can do that all from our phone. But it does take a certain mindset to be able to just kind of push through that,
of course,
and not worry about it too much. I'm always worrying about anything that I post, and so it just takes that extra step to get me to hit that button. But
no, for sure. And that's what I'm saying is like those steps of, let's say again, posting stills of your film, right? Or this article that you're featured in, those are just small steps. But the fact that you took them is far greater than the ones that refuse to be, written in an article. You know what I mean? Because I again, I'm speaking from experience. Like, it seems easy now. Look at me, like telling you, like, make a podcast, but I'm not one of those guys, right? It's like, I understand that it's going to take a process, and you have to go at your own pace and your own volition. So the fact that you have the mindset and you're aware that it's important is what matters. Everything else will fall into place. So you got that.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I want to know from you, like, why is it imperative for filmmakers like yourself to be given platforms or media outlets that highlight their careers and promote their projects? I know we were, kind of touching on that with having, the courage or, the mindset, again, to have that exposure on social media. But do you feel like oftentimes like it's highly necessary, especially with this upcoming project?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about social media, when we're talking about kind of getting word out there, we're in a day and age where everything is just so saturated with like things to look at. You can look at Instagram posts, Twitter posts, YouTube videos, TikTok videos, all of that. And so, when we're talking about getting word out there, it is very easy to just like miss things. And having platforms feature your work and your journey is just kind of giving that boost to your creativity and your community, right? So I think it's valuable to share the work of independent artists, because it helps propel their message, and it helps hopefully lead to other projects for those artists. So
Exactly,
they get to keep creating, they get to keep producing and all that, and they get a little boost. So it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah, I like what you said, and that's what it is. I know it sounds kind of like selfish and self-gratifying, but the reality is just having those like markers of progress by having people like yourself or Eric, Tomj, people I have no association with, I didn't grow up with, they don't owe me anything, tell me, oh, I like your content, or I like your films, or this was inspiring to me. I'd be dishonest to say that it wasn't that recognition didn't really like help me, you know what I mean? Like kind of encourage me, like I'm on the right track. Because at the end of the day, like we're in a profession, we're pursuing a medium and an art form where we require the market to respond to our work. You know what I mean? It's not like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We work at a lighthouse. Like we need people to like our work in order to.
Someone's got to watch the movies.
Yeah, someone's got to watch the film. Like you can't just
Yeah.
come on here and be like, yeah, man, if you like it, you like it, and that's it. It's like, well, you better pray a good majority like it, because you need to make the next one. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a business at the end of the day, right? Like with anything.
Exactly. And I'm definitely hoping to make movies for an audience, right? Like this film being a heist comedy, that is like, this project was one step towards what I hope to be doing in the future.
Exactly.
It was, let's make a movie that, everyone can have fun making and then have fun watching. I've been very blessed that all of the crew is, really looking forward to seeing the project. It puts a little pressure on me, but I'd rather the pressure than people, not wanting to see it. So, that's great to hear.
Yeah, of course. No, and that kind of leads me into my next question that I wanted to ask you, because this is what I mean by, as filmmakers, we eventually grow and evolve, and we ask ourselves the next question, like we can only be doing short films for so long, right? Like what's next? And that's actually at a point in my career where I'm encountering, I did a bunch of these short films, and it's like, I could keep doing them, which I will. There's obviously these projects, or even recently someone reached out to me on social media like, hey, I'd love for you to direct a short film, but eventually I really want to make my features, as do you. So a notable observation I made from when viewing your social media profile is the cheeky and aspirational sentence, hoping to make tall films one day. So any filmmaker who reads or hears such a line will immediately resonate with its universal meaning that we're all working on short films with a desire toward making feature films. What do you believe is the best approach in developing and executing on a feature film project?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there is immense value to creating short films.
Okay.
It is a great kind of like testing ground for new techniques, new skills, and in this case with this film, new territory in terms of ambition of scale. So I definitely think that is a valuable resource in terms of like the way that we can push things out and try things. That doesn't mean that I don't want to make tall films or feature films. I definitely do. And I think like for independent filmmakers, I mean, this project was like, it showed me that all of those people saying those like sentences that you hear all the time of like, you got to use the resources that and you got to keep it contained, like all of those people, even if you don't want to believe them, are correct. The making films with resources that you have available to you, with a team that is along for the ride, for the non-glamorous movie making of independent filmmaking, and understanding where you can push harder and then where to stop so you don't spread yourself too thin. We were talking about, I really wanted this film to feel like a feature film without having to go too far and like actually go stretch ourselves too thin, like I just said. So,
Yeah.
We have, one scene with a banquet hall with lots of extras, and that was friends and family. But, I made sure that we could shoot them out in one day so that, we get that sense of scale, that sense of a world, without having to, bring everyone back and schedule all these people for like that is the thing that we learned, so it's understanding your resources, it's understanding where you can push, where you can stop, what your strengths are. I love, making use of a location with camera movement. So we wanted to make sure that we had a lot of space in our locations to kind of show them off. So we could take a more basic location and, throw the camera everywhere and, really push the level of filmmaking to, feel bigger than, what we had available to us.
Yeah, no, that's well said, and I'm so happy that you were mentioning about like short films, and the value they can provide, and it's not something to be easily dismissed. It's incredible value for filmmakers like ourselves who are growing, aspiring to make this a full-time career, a career that we can make money off of. For me, short films have allowed me the opportunity to find my voice as a director, work with the people that I want to work with. And more importantly, just be comfortable in the role. I think too many of us, I know I'm guilty of this, wanted to just jump in and say I'm a director. And while that's great because it manifested that and I had to assume that role or else no one was going to do it for me, there was a lot of challenges because director is like the pinnacle, like the leader. And you know how it is. Like a lot of people feel compelled that they need to direct. They don't realize it's its own craft on its own. Like it's not just anyone can direct. You know what I mean? Like you really have to be a leader and a visionary and see everything all the way through and understand every aspect of the filmmaking process. But nevertheless, I think that's what it taught me, working with a lot of individuals and being surrounded by talented people is I enjoy the delegation. I enjoy being the visionary and I enjoy being the director. And I credit that to making short films, and I always say, the 18-year-old self, when I wrote my first feature-length screenplay, like one of my many passion projects that I've written, thought in his deluded sense that I would be directing that feature film right away. Like that would be my first project, my directorial debut. And as I navigate the industry, you start to understand when you come across again with people like yourself that you gotta have something to show for until you get to that level. And this is where it starts with short films. So not to discredit them, that they've served a lot for us. But again, feature films are on the radar. They come at a point when you start to say you need to evolve, you need to elevate your career as a filmmaker. And I like what you said, where the films that you do have, like that you are presented with, the budget you're given it, that is, you still treat it like a feature. You don't kind of reduce or dilute any of the quality for the sake of because I didn't have the money to do it. It's like, no, let me use my creative prowess and like do everything I can to get to that point. To make it look cinematic. Yeah,
absolutely. At this scale, it's about creative filmic problem solving, right? So it's about making sure that you're able to make 20 extras feel like 40. It's being able to make one location feel like we have one hallway in here that I hope feels like 3 hallways. It was really just kind of stretching things as far as we can go without having the rubber band snap. And hopefully we can kind of keep doing that on short films, and then that skill set, I think like if people are able to do that on short films and kind of take their stretch their dollar, stretch their movie to the as far as it can go, that's a skill set that does not just relate to low budget films, right? Like if you are given the blank check of make the dream project and you have the support of the studio, like they're going to appreciate how far you can take that dollar, how far you can take that scene, how far you can stretch things. It's not just a talent for independent filmmakers, but it's a valuable talent for independent filmmakers.
That's amazing, man. And on that note, I really have to say thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and explaining, not only your journey, your experiences as a filmmaker, but this incredible film that I am highly anticipating. The Only Way Out is Down, produced by yourself and Eric Tomj. Shout out to him again for connecting me with you. I really have to say, like, you're an intelligent guy. You're sharp, and you got a lot going for you. So I'm really excited what you're going to be creating in the near future.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast. This is my first podcast appearance, and I'm happy to chat with you, and hopefully we can do it again.
That's awesome. Yeah, of course we can. And looking forward to connecting and possibly collaborating in the future as well. So thank you again, Joe Bigioni, for coming on the podcast. Thank you, everybody else, for listening, and we'll talk soon.